They say there was once a thief in Kalumba who could steal the moon from the sky and leave no footprints behind. His name was Kato, and no door, no guard, no spirit had ever stopped him. But even the cleverest man can mistake a warning for a challenge. For in the sacred forest stood a forbidden fruit, and the night Kato touched it, the village began to die. If this story stirs your curiosity, stay with us and tell us where you're watching from. In the heart of the red earth plains, where the wind carried both dust and ancient whispers, there stood the village of Kalumba. It was a place where the sun rose with purpose and set with memory, where elders spoke in proverbs and children listened with wide believing eyes. The people of Kalumba were farmers, traders, and keepers of old ways. They believed the world was not only what the eyes could see, but also what the spirits chose to reveal. And in that village lived a man who believed in none of it. His name was Kato. Kato was known not for his kindness nor for his strength, but for something far more dangerous, his cleverness. They said his hands moved like shadows, and his mind was sharper than the hunter's spear. Goats would vanish from their pens, coins would disappear from locked boxes, and even the chief's prized bracelet once slipped away in the night without a trace. Yet no one had ever caught Kato. Not once. Spirits Kato would laugh lounging beneath the baobab tree as others spoke in hushed tones. If spirits guard your homes, then why do I still walk free? Some villagers shook their heads, others lowered their eyes. For in Kalumba, mocking the unseen was not just foolish, it was dangerous. Among those who still dared to speak to Kato was Adisa. Adisa was a market woman known for her calm voice and steady heart. Her store was always filled with yams, dried fish, and kola nuts, but it was her wisdom that people came for most. She had watched Kato grow from a restless boy into a man who trusted only his own wit. One afternoon, as the sun burned high and the air shimmered, she called out to him. Kato, she said gently, a man who walks too long in darkness begins to forget what light feels like. Kato smirked, tossing a coin in the air before catching it with ease. And a woman who fears shadows, he replied, will never see what lies beyond them. Adisa sighed, her eyes heavy with something deeper than disappointment. There are things beyond us for a reason. Kato only laughed and walked away. Beyond the far edge of Kalumba, past the last huts and the grazing lands, there lay a forest no child dared enter alone. The elders called it the sacred grove. Its trees grew taller than memory, their roots twisted like secrets buried deep within the earth. Even the wind seemed to move differently there, slower as though it listened. At the very heart of that forest stood a tree unlike any other. Its bark shimmered faintly under moonlight, and its leaves whispered even when the air was still. But it was the fruit that drew both awe and fear. Golden in color, smooth as polished stone, and glowing faintly as if lit from within, the fruit was said to hold power beyond understanding. Some claimed it could heal the dying. Others believed it granted strength beyond human limits. But every story ended the same way. A warning. No hand may take what the spirits have sealed. The elders spoke of it often, their voices low and grave. That fruit is not a gift, one would say. It is a test. And those who fail it, another would add, do not return as they were. But Kato, who feared neither man nor myth, only saw something else entirely. Opportunity. And as the whispers of the forbidden fruit reached his ears, something stirred within him, not fear, not caution, but hunger. Seasons in Kalumba were once as reliable as the beating of a drum. The rains came when they were called the soil, answered with abundance, and the people sang as they harvested what the earth had given. But that year the sky grew silent. The clouds gathered and passed. Again and again, the sun burned longer, hotter, and without mercy. The river that once danced along the edge of the village shrank into a thin, reluctant stream. Crops withered where they stood, their leaves curling like hands in prayer that would not be answered. Goats grew thin, children cried through the night, and the laughter that once filled Kalumba faded into quiet worry. They say even the spirits are watching, an old woman whispered in the market, waiting for what no one dared to say aloud. One evening, as the village gathered beneath the great baobab tree, the elders called for silence. Their faces were lined not just with age, but with the weight of memory. The oldest among them, Elder Ngolo, stepped forward, leaning on a carved staff. There was a time he began his voice like dry leaves, brushing together, when such a drought came before. And when it did, the spirits gave a path, but only to one who was chosen. The crowd stirred uneasily. The fruit, someone whispered. Ngolo nodded slowly. Yes, the fruit at the heart of the sacred grove. It carries power, but not for greed, not for pride, only for balance. And who will choose a man called out? The spirits, Ngolo replied, as they always have. A heavy silence followed. Kato stood at the edge of the gathering arms, crossed his eyes sharp and calculating. While others felt fear, he felt something else entirely: possibility. So the fruit was real. And more than that, it was powerful. That night, as the village prayed and waited for signs, Kato sat alone outside his hut, staring into the darkness beyond the fields. They wait to be chosen, he muttered under his breath. They beg for permission from things they cannot even see. He picked up a small stone and tossed it idly. Fools. But even as he spoke, his mind was racing. If the fruit could heal the land, what could it do for him? Strength, wealth, power, beyond anything the village had ever seen. A slow smile crept across his face. I will not wait, he whispered. The next morning, as the sun rose weak and pale, Kato made his way to the market. There he found Adisa arranging her goods in silence, her usual calm replaced by a quiet heaviness. You've heard, she asked without looking up. Kato leaned casually against a wooden post. About the fruit, yes. Adisa finally met his gaze, her eyes searching his face. Then you know this is not something to play with. Kato chuckled. Everything can be played with, if you know how. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Listen to me, Kato. This is not like the things you steal in the night. This is not a bracelet or a goat. That fruit is bound by laws older than this village. And yet Kato replied smoothly, it still hangs on a tree, untouched, for a reason, Adisa said firmly. Kato tilted his head. Or because no one has been brave enough. Not brave, she corrected. Wise. For a moment, something flickered in Kato's eyes, uncertainty perhaps. But it vanished as quickly as it came. Tell me, Adisa, he said, his tone sharpening, when the children cry from hunger tonight, will wisdom feed them? Adisa's expression tightened. She had no answer for that. Kato pushed himself away from the post. I will do what others are too afraid to do. You will bring ruin, she said quietly. But Kato was already walking away. That night, as the village slept under a sky that refused to weep, Kato began to prepare. He studied the paths leading to the sacred grove. He packed lightly, just enough to move quickly, silently. He wrapped his feet to muffle his steps and darkened his skin with ash to blend into the shadows. Every movement was precise, every thought calculated. And yet, as he stood at the edge of the forest, staring into its deep breathing darkness, he felt something unfamiliar crawl along his spine. Not fear, no, not quite, but something close enough to make him hesitate. For just a moment, then he smiled. Even spirits, Kato whispered, can be outsmarted. And with that, he stepped into the sacred grove. The sacred grove did not welcome footsteps. It listened. The moment Kato crossed beneath its towering trees, the air changed. The sounds of the village goats' voices. Even the restless wind fell away, as if swallowed by something unseen. In their place came a silence so deep it pressed against the ears, heavy and watchful. Kato moved carefully, his body low, his steps measured. He had walked through guarded compounds and slipped past sleeping dogs, but this was different. There were no guards here, no locks to pick, only a presence that could not be seen yet felt in every breath. Just trees, he muttered, though his voice sounded smaller than he intended. The forest did not answer, but the leaves above him rustled, though there was no wind. Kato paused. His instincts, sharpened by years of danger, whispered caution. But pride spoke louder. He pressed on. The deeper he went, the stranger the grove became. Twisted roots rose from the ground like coiled serpents, forcing him to step carefully. Faint glimmers of light flickered between the trees there, one moment gone the next. Once he could have sworn he heard his name carried softly through the branches. Kato. He spun around, eyes scanning the darkness. Nothing. Only shadows stretching long and thin across the forest floor. Tricks, he said under his breath. Stories meant to scare children, yet his heart beat faster. Time seemed to lose its meaning as he walked. The path was not a path at all, but a shifting maze of trunks and vines, as if the forest itself resisted his progress. But Kato was patient. He observed, adapted, adjusted. Where others might have turned back, he studied the patterns, the way certain trees leaned, the way the faint glow seemed to pulse in one direction, and slowly, he found his way. Then at last, he saw it. At the center of a clearing bathed in an unnatural stillness stood the tree. It was taller than any in the grove, its bark smooth and pale, almost luminous in the dim light. Its branches stretched wide, heavy, with leaves that shimmered faintly like metal catching the sun. And there, hanging from its highest limbs, were the fruits, golden, perfect, each one glowing softly as if alive. Kato stepped into the clearing, his breath catching in his throat. "So, it is real," he whispered. For a moment, all his confidence returned. There were no spirits blocking his way, no invisible force striking him down, just a tree and its fruit. He circled it slowly, eyes fixed upward. "Power," he murmured. "All this fear, for something so simple." But as he reached out to touch the trunk, a sudden chill shot through his hand. He froze, the air thickened, and then a whisper, not from the trees, not from the wind, from within. "You do not belong here." Kato staggered back, his breath quickening. His eyes darted around the clearing. "Who's there?" he demanded. Silence, only the faint glow of the fruit above him. His jaw tightened. "This is nothing," he said, more to himself than anything else. A trick of the mind. He had come too far to turn back now. With a determined step, Kato approached the tree again. He scanned its branches, choosing the lowest hanging fruit close enough to reach if he climbed. He placed his foot against the trunk. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he began to climb. His hands gripped the smooth bark, his body moving with practiced ease. Higher and higher he went until he was level with the fruit. Up close, it was even more mesmerizing. Its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting not just light but something deeper, something almost like movement beneath its skin. Kato hesitated. Adisa's voice echoed faintly in his mind. "This is not a gift, it is a test." His fingers hovered inches from the fruit. His heart pounded. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if the stories were true? What if this was not meant for him? The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching. Kato swallowed hard. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. "Then I will be the one who passes the test." And without another thought, he grabbed the fruit. The moment his fingers closed around it, the world changed. A violent wind tore through the clearing, though the trees did not move. The golden glow flared blindingly bright. A deep echoing sound, like a drum struck beneath the earth, rippled through the grove. Kato gasped, nearly losing his grip, but he held on, and with a final desperate pull, he tore the fruit free. The light vanished, the wind died, and the forest fell silent once more. Kato clung to the tree, his chest, heaving the fruit heavy in his hand. For a long moment, Nothing happened. Then slowly he began to laugh. I did it, he whispered. I took it. He climbed down his movements, unsteady but triumphant. As his feet touched the ground, he looked around the clearing once more. No spirits, no punishment, just silence. Kato held the glowing fruit close to his chest, a grin spreading across his face. Even the spirits, he said softly, can be fooled. And without looking back, he turned and disappeared into the shadows of the grove. When Kato emerged from the sacred grove, the night air felt different, lighter, almost as if the world itself had exhaled. The stars above flickered faintly, their usual brilliance dimmed by something unseen. But Kato noticed none of it. His eyes were fixed on the fruit in his hands. It pulsed, softly at first, then stronger. A faint golden glow spread across his fingers, crawling up his arms, like warm light sinking into his skin. He gasped, not in fear, but in awe. Yes, he whispered. Yes, this is power. He hurried back toward the village, moving faster than he ever had before. The ground beneath his feet seemed to welcome him, each step lighter, quicker. When he reached his hut, he shut the door tightly and sat in the darkness, staring at the fruit as though it were the sun itself. For a long time he only watched. Then slowly he took a bite. The taste was unlike anything he had ever known. Sweet, but not just sweet. It was sharp, electric, alive. It filled his mouth, then his chest, then his entire body. A sudden surge of energy shot through him, forcing him to his feet. Kato staggered back, knocking over a clay pot. His vision blurred, then sharpened. Every detail in the room became painfully clear. The cracks in the walls, the tiny insects crawling along the floor, the rhythm of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. He laughed, a deep, wild laugh. I can see everything. He stepped outside. The night had changed. Or perhaps he had. The wind whispered louder, now carrying voices he could almost understand. The shadows no longer hid things, they revealed them. He could sense movement far beyond what his eyes could reach. A goat stirring in its sleep, a child turning restlessly in a distant hut. Kato spread his arms, breathing deeply. I am more than them now, he said. But as the power surged through him, something else followed. A faint sound, a whisper. You have taken, now you must give. Kato stiffened. The voice was not outside. It was inside his head. He shook it off quickly, forcing a grin back onto his face. Just echoes, he muttered. Nothing more. But the whisper did not fully leave. It lingered. The next morning, the village woke to unease. A strange stillness hung in the air. The sky was pale, almost gray, though no clouds covered it. The ground felt dry, too dry as if something beneath it had been drained. At the market, Adisa noticed it immediately. This is not right, she murmured, her eyes scanning the horizon. People spoke in hushed tones. The river has shrunk again. My crops, they are worse than yesterday. It is as if the earth is weakening. Adisa's heart tightened. And then she saw him. Kato walked through the market with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. His movements were sharper, faster, almost unnatural. His eyes gleamed with something new, something unsettling. Kato, she called out. He turned slowly, a smile already forming. Adisa, he greeted, his voice smooth. She stepped closer, studying him carefully. What have you done? Kato chuckled. Done, I have done what no one else could. Her gaze hardened. You went to the forest. It was not a question. Kato's smile widened. And if I did, a murmur spread among those nearby. Adisa lowered her voice. You took it. Yes, Kato said almost proudly. And look at me. Do I look cursed? Adisa did not answer immediately, because what she saw did not look like a blessing either. There was something wrong with his eyes, something restless, something hungry. The land is suffering, she said finally. Can you not feel it? Kato waved a dismissive hand. The land has always suffered. That is why people pray instead of act. This is different, she insisted. You have disturbed something. For a brief moment, Kato hesitated. The whisper returned. You have taken. Now you must give. He clenched his jaw. I have gained, he said firmly. That is all. But even as he spoke, a sudden wave of dizziness hit him. He staggered slightly. Adisa's eyes widened. Kato. I'm fine, he snapped, regaining his balance quickly. Better than fine. But the truth was harder to ignore. The power was still there, but it no longer felt steady. It surged, then dipped, like something breathing inside him, watching, waiting. That night, as Kato lay in his hut, the whispers grew louder. You have taken. You have taken. You must give. He pressed his hands over his ears, but it made no difference, because the voice was not outside, it was within. And somewhere far beyond the village, deep in the sacred grove, the tree stood silent, but one of its branches was bleeding light. By the third day, even the most stubborn hearts in Kalumba could no longer deny it something was wrong. The ground cracked beneath bare feet. The wells that once gave water freely now coughed up mud. Chickens refused to lay, goats refused to eat, and even the elders who had seen drought before shook their heads in quiet fear. This is not hunger, Elder Ngolo said, his voice heavy. This is imbalance. The word moved through the village like a shadow. Imbalance. And when a village falls out of balance, someone has tipped the scale. Adisa did not wait for the elders to finish their deliberations. She already knew where to look. She found Kato near the edge of the village, sitting alone beneath a dying tree. The once green leaves above him had turned brittle, falling one by one like silent warnings. Kato, she called, her voice steady but urgent. He did not answer immediately. When he finally looked up, Adisa felt her breath catch. His face was the same, and yet not. His eyes flickered with a strange golden sheen, but behind it was something unstable, like fire that could not decide whether to burn or die. His skin seemed tighter, his movements slightly delayed, as though he were struggling to keep up with himself. You should not be here, he said quietly. Adisa stepped closer anyway. You need to return it. Kato laughed, but the sound was hollow. Return what, he asked. The fruit, she said firmly. You know what I speak of. His expression hardened. You think everything that happens is because of me. I think you broke a law older than both of us, she replied. And now the land is paying for it. Kato stood slowly, his body swaying just slightly. The land was already dying, he snapped. I only took what could change that. But you did not take it for the village, Adisa said, her voice rising. You took it for yourself. That struck something. For a brief moment, Kato's confidence faltered. His jaw tightened, and his eyes flickered not with anger, but with something deeper, doubt. Then the whisper came again. You have taken. His hand twitched. You must give. Kato pressed his fingers against his temple, breathing harder. Adisa saw it. Kato, what is happening to you? Nothing, he growled. I am stronger than ever, but even as he said it, his body betrayed him. His shoulders tensed unnaturally, his breathing uneven. The golden glow in his eyes flared, then dimmed. You are not in control, Adisa said softly. Enough, he shouted. The force of his voice startled even himself. A sudden gust of wind burst outward from where he stood, scattering dust and leaves in all directions. Adisa stumbled back, shielding her face. Silence followed, heavy, unnatural. Kato stared at his own hands. What was that? He whispered. Adisa's fear deepened. It is taking from you now. No, Kato said, quickly shaking his head. No, it is giving me more. Then why do you look afraid? He opened his mouth to respond, but the words would not come, because deep inside he knew the power did not feel like his anymore. It moved without asking. It surged without warning. It whispered without stopping. You have taken. You must give. Kato staggered backward, clutching his chest as a sharp pain spread through him. His vision blurred then, sharpened again, but the world around him felt wrong. The colors were too bright, the sounds too loud, the silence too deep. I can fix this, he said desperately, more to himself than to Adisa. I just need time. There is no time, she replied. The elders are already searching for the one who broke the law. Kato froze. They know, he asked. Not yet, Adisa said. But they will. A distant drumbeat echoed through the village. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The sound of a gathering. The sound of judgment. Kato's heart pounded. They cannot know, he whispered. Adisa stepped closer, her voice urgent but pleading. Then come with me. We will go to the grove. We will return what you took. There may still be a way. No, Kato snapped, backing away. The thought of returning, of giving up the power, sent a surge of panic through him. I did not steal this just to give it back, he said, his voice shaking. You did not steal it, Adisa replied. You were claimed by it. Those words hung in the air, heavy, final. Kato shook his head violently. No, I am still in control. But as the whisper rose again, louder, sharper, almost demanding, you must give, his body trembled, and for the first time since he had taken the fruit, Kato was no longer sure who was speaking. The drums did not stop. They echoed through Kalumba like a heartbeat growing louder, with each passing moment, summoning, warning, judging. Villagers gathered beneath the great baobab tree, their faces drawn with fear and suspicion. Children clung to their mothers. Men stood with arms crossed, eyes scanning the crowd as if the answer might reveal itself in someone's shadow. Elder Ngolo stood at the center, his staff planted firmly into the earth. The balance has been broken, he declared, and until it is restored, the land will continue to suffer. A murmur rose. Who would dare such a thing? Who would challenge the spirits? But even as the questions were spoken, many eyes had already begun to turn slowly, uncertainly toward one name, Kato, not because they had proof, but because deep down, they knew. At the edge of the village, Kato stood alone. The whispers had become unbearable, no longer soft, no longer distant. They filled his mind, layered over one another like a storm of voices. You have taken, you must give, 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 give. Stop, Kato shouted, clutching his head. The world around him twisted. The ground beneath his feet seemed to pulse as if alive. His breath came in sharp, uneven bursts. I will not give it back, he growled through clenched teeth. It is mine. But even as he said it, something inside him laughed. A low, hollow sound, not his own. His body jerked suddenly as if pulled by unseen hands. His fingers curled, then stretched, trembling with energy that no longer obeyed him. And then the truth came, not as a whisper, but as a voice. Clear, cold, unforgiving. You were never the master. Kato froze. The world fell silent. The fruit does not give power, the voice continued. It reveals hunger and feeds on it. Images flooded his mind, not memories, visions. He saw others before him, men and women, who had once stood where he stood, each reaching for the same golden glow, each believing themselves chosen, special, untouchable. And one by one, they faded, consumed, not by the fruit itself, but by what it awakened within them. Kato staggered backward, his breath shaking. No, that's not true. But deep inside he felt it. The emptiness, growing. The power he once felt surging through him now flickered like a dying flame. In its place came something colder, heavier, like a void slowly swallowing everything he was. You have taken, the voice said again, and now you must give. Kato dropped to his knees. What do you want from me? He whispered. The answer came without hesitation. Everything, A scream tore from his throat as his body convulsed. His strength drained rapidly, his limbs weakening, his vision dimming. "No, I can still control it," he gasped. But control had never been his. Not truly. Back in the village, Adisa felt it. A shift. A pull. She turned toward the direction of the sacred grove, her heart racing. "It's happening," she said. Without waiting, she ran. Through the dry fields, past the cracked earth, into the edge of the forest, where shadows stretched long and deep. She found him there, Kato, collapsed, barely recognizable. His once confident frame, now fragile, trembling as the last traces of golden light flickered around him like dying embers. "Kato," she cried, rushing to his side. He looked up at her, his eyes no longer glowing, only hollow. "I was wrong," he whispered. Adisa knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "We must take it back, now." Kato shook his head weakly. "It's too late," he said. The ground beneath them began to tremble. From the depths of the forest, a faint golden light rose, drawn not toward the tree, but toward him. "The fruit," Adisa whispered. Kato let out a broken laugh. "I didn't take it," he said softly. "It took me." The light surged, wrapping around him, pulling. Adisa reached for him, gripping his hand tightly. "Hold on," but Kato's grip was already fading. "This is the price," he said, his voice barely audible. "For thinking I could take without giving." The light intensified, blinding. And then he was gone. Only silence remained. And far within the sacred grove, a new fruit began to grow. They say the land remembers. Not with words, not with voices, but with balance. In the days that followed Kato's disappearance, something in Kalumba began to change. At first it was small, so small that only those who paid close attention could see it. A drop of water where there had been none. A single green shoot pushing through cracked soil. The air once heavy and dry softened, just slightly. Then one morning the clouds returned, not with thunder, not with fury, but with quiet mercy. Rain fell gently upon the village, soaking into the earth like forgiveness long delayed. The people came out of their huts, lifting their faces to the sky, letting the water wash away their fear, their doubt, and their silence. "The balance is returning," Elder Nugolo said, his voice calm once more. But no one celebrated loudly, because they all knew what it had cost. Adisa stood at the edge of the village, her eyes fixed on the distant line of the sacred grove. The rain clung to her skin, but she did not move. In her heart there was no relief, only a quiet ache. "He could have chosen differently," she whispered. But then again, so could many. Days later, when the elders deemed it safe, a small group journeyed into the sacred grove. They walked carefully, respectfully, as though stepping into the presence of something that had seen far more than they ever would. At the center of the clearing, the great tree still stood, unchanged, unmoved. But among its branches, something new shimmered. A fruit, golden, perfect, glowing faintly just as before. No mark, no sign of what had happened. Only the same silent warning carried in the stillness of the air. No hand may take what the spirits have sealed. The elders bowed their heads, and this time, no one questioned why. Back in Kalumba, life slowly returned to its rhythm. The river filled again, crops grew. Laughter once lost found its way back into the village, but softer now, more careful. Children were told the story, not as a tale of fear, but as a lesson. They spoke of Kato, the clever thief, who believed he could outwit even the unseen. The man who saw warning as challenge and temptation as opportunity. The man who took without understanding what it meant to give. And they remembered how it ended. They say pride blinds the heart, the elders would say, and hunger without wisdom devours the soul. Adisa would sometimes sit beneath the baobab tree, watching the children play her voice, gentle but firm as she spoke. Not everything hidden is meant to be found, she told them. And not everything powerful is meant to be held. A young boy once asked her, "Was Kato a bad man?" Adisa paused. Then she shook her head. "No," she said softly. "He was a man who believed he was above consequence." She looked toward the horizon where the sacred grove stood in quiet watch. And that belief, she added, is the most dangerous thief of all. Because in every village there is always something forbidden, and in every heart there is always a moment of choice. To take or to understand why we must not. So when you hear stories of power hidden beyond reach, remember Kalumba, remember Kato, and remember this. The greatest danger is not the fruit we are told not to touch, but the voice inside us that insists we deserve it anyway. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that carry the wisdom of the old ways.